Good evening and welcome to Sensual Talk. This is where we explore all things related to sensuality and pleasure. I'm your host, Emanuela Fernandes. Tonight's subject is an important one. Sexual trauma is more common than we realize. Recent worldwide figures show that 1 in 3 women have experienced sexual violence by a partner or a stranger. 20% of women reported being sexually abused as children, and it is no longer a secret that sexual assault is a big issue on our college campuses. If sexual trauma is something you're living with, you know that healing and experiencing pleasure can be a Herculean task. To discuss this important issue, I am privileged to be joined by a sex coach, educator, and creator of Good For Her in Toronto, Miss Carlyle Jensen.
Hello.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you so much for being on Sensual Talk and for having me right here at Good For Her.
It's a pleasure.
You truly are someone who really has helped so many women. You created this incredible facility here in Toronto, Good For Her, where I was privileged to actually facilitate a workshop last week, which was phenomenal. But you really empower women to reclaim the world of pleasure, and I thank you so much for that.
Well, thanks for being a part of that. And, I'm inspired by people every day who choose to go through their fears, their barriers, to embrace their sexuality, to enhance their relationships. Everybody's coming from their own place, and it's a privilege for me to be able to assist.
And you truly are a pioneer because you've been doing this for how many years?
21 years.
21 years. This place has been here in Toronto, so it really is iconic, and I'm honestly so privileged. Anyway, Carlyle, it's a very important discussion. So first of all, before we dive in, I just want to give a shout out to Dronish Media for sponsoring this evening's presentation. I want to thank you all for joining us this evening. I hope that you can stick around. There's some very, very important conversation coming your way, and please pass it along. Please pass it on to women that you know who have suffered from sexual trauma before, and I really hope that this is going to be a brand new inspiring chapter for them and for you perhaps. So Carla, let's begin. First of all, what is sexual trauma?
So I'm not a therapist per se, and for some people it's really, the definition is post-traumatic stress disorder that comes from sexual abuse. And so it's something that affects our whole being, our sexuality, that impacts our relationships, that makes it hard for us to feel pleasure, to enjoy pleasure, to enjoy our genitals, to enjoy physical interaction, and often is related to one or more significant events. For some people though, they'll have small traumas, right? They don't necessarily have full-blown PTSD, but we've all experienced where someone said something in a weird way, or touched us in a way that we didn't appreciate, or called us a name. Those would be sort of small things, but that still affect us, and we still carry those things into our relationships with ourselves, relationships with our partners. So it's something that has varying degrees, and can certainly make it so that we will either shut out, right, our sexuality. For some people it means that we indulge in ways that are unhealthy, and lots of us manage it and figure out how we heal from it, and we figure out how to reconnect with ourselves and other people in ways that can bring us pleasure and enhance our lives.
So what are the symptoms that people experience commonly when they do experience a very traumatic event and then post that sexual trauma?
So sometimes they'll get panic attacks, and so anxiety, whether it be thinking about going on a date, or with a partner that they've been with. So sometimes you might have a partner and you remember trauma from many years ago, and then sort of engaging with your partner again, or something happened outside of the relationship, but now you have someone who you have been intimate with and you want to be intimate with them. So even connecting with that person can feel anxiety provoking. Some people have flashbacks, some people freeze. Some people will sort of disconnect themselves, and so they'll do what sort of like observing themselves having sex, and spectatoring it's called, rather than actually being in their bodies. Some of us will experience it but not really feel it. So there's a whole range of responses and effects that we will feel, just depending on who we are and what happened.
So it really sounds like a very painful experience to go through, and also painful to deal with the aftermath.
Absolutely, and sometimes, it's easier to avoid it, and I want to respect people who say, like, you know what, just not going to go there,
shut it
right?
out. Yeah.
Some people decide eventually they do want to face that, and it can be a really hard process and take a lot of work and emotional energy to get back to a place where you can be present and you can accept. It's certainly emotionally challenging, both in the situation as well as outside of the situation. And no two people are going to respond the same way. So just because I experienced something and I was okay 2 weeks later, doesn't mean that everybody else is going to have the same kind of response.
I guess it's our mind. It's amazing because it has so many layers, and some experiences even from our childhood can affect, I think, the way we accept and understand the world later, right? So it's really very complex. Our mind is very complex. But let me ask you this, Carlyle: can trauma actually be healed completely?
Well, I think that we, just like if I'm in a car accident, I might fully heal, but I'm still going to have a scar. And so we're always going to have those aspects that, it forms a part of who we are. However, we can still, we can come to a place where we can have very healthy, very happy, very fulfilling sexual relationships, whether it be just with ourselves and or with a partner. It's possible, but it takes a lot of work and a lot of commitment. Some people are prepared to do that, some people aren't.
It's very interesting stuff, and I know that you brought some goodies, some props that you wanted to talk about, and I would love to experience it and just see what you have to say about them, please.
Yeah, so part of it is you're going to be your own sexual partner for your whole life. So sometimes the first place to start is for yourself, and that we have an easier time trusting ourselves than we can someone else. And so I like to start with just very simple things like a scarf. And just, for some people, even that's going to be intense, right? Just dragging that along your body, just allowing yourself to feel that. Maybe having a partner do that can be helpful. So whatever's going to help you kind of move through it, and using different techniques. So a therapist might recommend something like cognitive behavioral therapy, and sort of going through the thoughts that go through your mind and reminding yourself that you're in this place now, you're not in the place where that happened, that you're safe, you're okay. These I love. These are so fabulous. These are just, those dollar store beads. Right. Dragging those along your body just feels so nice, so pleasurable. Even
very
dragging
sensual.
them. Yeah, and dragging them even like on the inside of your thigh, along your vulva, can feel really lovely. And I always recommend.
It's a very different experience, for sure.
Yes. Go to the dollar store and I say, like, find yourself a bunch of pervertibles, right? Find things that you wouldn't necessarily aren't designed for pleasure.
I'm just curious, is this in the Webster's dictionary?
I'm not sure.
Because it should be.
Feather duster or anything. These are things that for some people are ways to start feeling pleasure. Maybe you want to do this with a partner, where somebody that you trust, and just allow them to just touch you in certain places, depending on where you're comfortable with, allowing yourself to just be present and feel. Then you can do, like, this is really wacky. This is the vibrating hairbrush.
Ooh, they have them? I didn't even realize that they sell those.
So just
it feels good.
Different kind of a texture, right? And for some people, just accepting that is in and of itself enough, right?
Right.
Or part of the journey.
Right.
And then this is just a very simple vibrator. So this is something that someone could choose to use externally along the whole vulva. You could use it internally in the vagina, against the clitoris, try it on your nipples, you know, where does it feel good, you know?
Right.
The options
You
are
experiment
limitless.
with your own body.
Yeah, and allowing yourself to just reclaim your body, because sometimes people feel like it was stolen away from them.
Oh, and that's such a
Right?
devastating feeling.
Yeah.
That must be such a devastating feeling.
Yeah, so just reclaiming it, saying, this is my body, you know, I'm going to enjoy the pleasure, I'm going to take it back for myself.
And you know, I must mention something else. You know, when we were talking about all those amazing props that are really fun to use, we must say one more thing is the fact that, you know, you must have a partner who will be patient enough and kind enough and caring enough to go through on this journey with you if you do have a sexual partner, which is a gift right there. But if you do not, really, I mean, you can reclaim your own body on your own.
Absolutely.
Just like you said, you are your you know, sexual partner for your entire life.
Yeah. Yeah, and even if you have a partner, I think it's really important to practice this on your own. And sometimes what that will do is give you information about what you like. What, you know, it's easier to just go inward and feel without the pressure of somebody looking at you and saying, "Are you okay?" Which sometimes our partners are very well intentioned, but it just takes away from us being able to shut everything else out and focus.
Absolutely.
Some people will also see a somatic sex therapist, who is someone who will help to just touch you in certain places and work with the emotions that come up. For some people, getting a regular just Swedish massage or Thai massage will be something that's going to be hard, but one step of the process. You know, some people, even, you know, being around animals or kids in your family, right? That kind of touch sometimes can be really healing. Just feeling like, wow, you know what? You know, they're innocent and they're just pure and they're unconditional. And wow, I can take that in and I can just enjoy that and own it for myself. Amazing. Right? And make those choices. So I also want to show you my vulva.
Please.
So this is
normally people don't tell me that they want to show their vulva.
We barely know each other yet.
Yes.
So this is a tool that I use for teaching, as well as education, really. But it can also be very therapeutic. And just you know, sometimes maybe looking at your own vulva or touching your own might be a little bit too much. So just kind of looking at one of these and embracing it and sort of being like, you know what, this is beautiful, and this is a part of who I am, and this is a part that I can nurture back to reconnecting to and feeling at one with again. And so sometimes props like this are really helpful to step in, you know, and bring that sense of ownership and pleasure and beauty once again to a part of our body that sometimes was violated.
Right. And I know that someone was doing a project recently, and unfortunately I can't put the name, you know, to the person who actually started this project, but it was about actually women, encouraging women to take a look at their vaginas every single day, right? Which was, I thought it was so brilliant, because it really allows you to embrace and to love and to reclaim, you know, this incredible body part, which first of all is important biologically, but also brings so much pleasure.
Well, and you know, so many of us women have been told that vulvas and vaginas are dirty, smelly, and ugly and taste terrible.
Yeah.
So we really struggle with allowing somebody else to look at it, to be close to it, to touch it, to taste it.
Right.
You know, a lot of us feel either, you know, ambiguity or downright shame. And the reality is that all of our genitals are fabulous. They're all part of our bodies. They all taste the same, pretty much, with a little bit of variation, you know, from person to person. So looking at your vulva, touching your vulva, tasting yourself. What does that taste like? Because you're much more comfortable allowing somebody else to do that if you know what you taste like. And it's an acquired taste, just like wine or beer.
Right.
Most of us, didn't really like it the first time. Some of us love the taste of genital fluids at first, but some of us, it takes a little bit for us to just kind of get used to it. And just learn to love our bodies.
Yeah. So powerful and so important. And another quick thing that I wanted to mention, I mean, women's bodies are actually much more prone to experiencing pleasure than men. We have more pleasure points in our bodies, which is such an amazing thing, and we don't celebrate that enough.
Well, and we're all a little bit different, right? And so the problem that happens is when you read an article and it says, the surefire way to have a great orgasm, and you try that, it doesn't work. That might work for you, it doesn't work for me. So we're much more varied as women's bodies than penises. Penis is more or less what works for one works for the other. But speaking of those, the reality is that a lot of men, or those with penises, also experience trauma and also experience sexual trauma. And, there's a whole different layer of shame and it's harder for them, not harder, but it's different harder because, they're going to get the comments like, who's going to turn down sex, or who doesn't want it, or what do you mean you didn't like it, right? What guy doesn't want sex? And it's really hard in a different way also to admit that. And that's the first part for all of us, right? Is to admit this thing happened and it wasn't my fault. Somebody did something wrong, and I'm gonna work with it and potentially heal it and do what I need to do to reclaim my body.
That is so inspiring. So one last thing I'm going to ask you. What do people need to know? What do you want to leave people with when it comes to the discussion of sexual trauma?
That it's never too late. Just because something happened to you, a week ago, a year ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago, if you decide that you want to face that and you want to move through that, it's never too late. And that, get the supports that you need in order to do that. I mean, you might be able to get through it on your own, which is great, but whether you have a friend, whether you have a group, whether you have a therapist, a supportive partner, there's lots of great resources. The Sexual Healing Journey is a great book. There's lots of great online resources. So, allow yourself to be supported. Don't feel like you have to do this on your own, because sometimes just knowing that there's other people out there who understand you, maybe who've been through the same thing, who know what's happening for you, is a really big part of moving on and allowing yourself to grow. So don't be shy, or you may have started the process, it was too hard, and you're ready to take it up again. That's great. Everybody's got a different journey, and honor your own path.
Carlyle, I thank you so much. This has been so educational. We could be going on for another 2 hours and just talking about this subject. However, we don't have this much time. We're out of time now, and I want to thank you so much, Carlyle. This is joy. Can we please do this again?
That would be a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I want to thank you all for joining us for another amazing, truly important and educational episode of Sensual Talk. I want to thank Jornish Media for sponsoring yet another Sensual Talk episode. I'm Emanuela Fernandes. We'll see you next time on Sensual Talk. Thank you so much, Carla.
Thank you.
Such pleasure. So educational. Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right. Did we have fun?
Yeah.
Yes.
That was
Good.
great. Okay.